He was speaking to unbelievers, meaning what? When he says you're the light of the world, who would put light under a bushel, but instead it needs to be in a window? An interesting reference to Hanukkah, by the way. But regardless, the principle is that he was speaking to everyone and saying it is all of you whose responsibility it is to fix this. Your fathers did damage, now you need to commit to repairing it. What's interesting is that there's not very many people who find the path of Tikkun Olam. There aren't very many people who are actually in a state of being present here on this earth with an understanding that they need to fix it. A majority of the people are saying it's somebody else's fault and I'm waiting for somebody else to fix it. When is God going to fix it? Right? The sentiment of Christianity is this rapture where the people are taken away and they don't have to endure this suffering anymore. And then the rest of the world gets suffered while there's this great reset, so that all of a sudden everybody gives allegiance to Christ. But the truth is that's kind of actually a rapture-induced stupor in which people actually are just waiting to die or be taken. They have no sense of responsibility that they need to fix this. And they have no sense of interest in the idea that they actually are the ones who have created the problem. Does being a Tikkun Olam operative make you perfect? No. You will continue to do damage until the day you die because you have free will. And although Torah has been written on your heart, you will rebel against it. You will find reasons to disobey it and justify yourself. And as you do, you cause a greater breach. Does one have to outweigh the other for you to have some sort of special recognition from God? No. He made him who knew no sin to become sin for us, that we might become the righteousness of God. The only way that Noah was righteous or blameless, the only way that Abraham was righteous or blameless, the only way that even the deceiver Jacob was righteous or blameless and was saved, as he indicates in next week's parasha, and Solomon, David, etc. was, and it was simple. He made him who knew no sin to become sin for us, that we might become the righteousness of God. I think it's important as we go through this that we think about the idea that sometimes, from what I have found, repair work is more laborious than the manufacturing, creation, and or the making process. In repair work, you have to troubleshoot, for example, interpret dreams. In repair work, you have to deconstruct things to get to the heart of the matter. In repair work, you have to have training. You have to know how to repair. You can't just jump into something and figure out how it works and make it work, right? Oftentimes things need to be replaced. Oftentimes there is a necessity that there needs to be a restoration, a refurbishing, as it were, a removal of the rust, patinas, etc. In repair work, you can actually bring something back to the state it was to begin with, or better. I always tell you guys that I am training my replacements. I think it's important in that process that you realize that as I'm training my replacements, I'm trying to make you better than me. Because you see, what one generation allows in moderation, the next generation will take to the extreme. Those who you teach will be better than you. Those who I teach will be better than me, but I'm training my replacements. And when I say this, what I mean is I've taught you to leave every situation better than you found it. You see, the rest of the world is waiting for somebody to fix it. The Father says to Isaiah, "Whom shall I send?" Now, there's a part of me that says that he said that to him in order to basically, in order to convince Isaiah that he could send him. But there's more. It seems as though there was no one else. It seems as though, as we take into consideration the premise of Isaiah's situation, I think we find that, yeah, he said it so that Isaiah would say, "Send me." But I think he also said it because there was nobody. Everybody else was expecting somebody else to change it. You are the change that this world needs. But you need to realize that there are forces of darkness designed to keep the light from ascending. What do I mean by that? I mean that if we were to elevate this world and there was a different vibrational frequency among humans, there would be less malevolency and more benevolency. The system of darkness is designed as a limitation to overcome. The principle is that's the threshold of elevation. When Paul spoke of the fruits of the Spirit, for example, patience. Well, one could argue that the only reason why patience would be required is because there's a situation in which we operate in impatience. The principle is that basically there's a need for patience, but that need for patience that will then eventually manifest through us as a divine emanation is only answered by us being obedient to that fruit, which equates to, if we don't, we will be impatient, which is the limitation. And until we step past that limitation, we are confronted with the fact that we are impatient. So see, the limitation itself is designed to step past it, and therefore it's the threshold. Therefore, elevate. When we are talking about the premise of Joseph's life, we are often confronted with some unfortunate presuppositions that we try to operate from because of our frames of reference. God would never let somebody who was innocent suffer like that. he had to have something wrong with him. He was fallible. He was a fallible human being like the rest of us. It must have been pride because of the many-colored coat, or because he had these dreams and he was trying to offer his own interpretation. I've heard a pulpit say that Joseph was wicked because he tried to interpret his own dream. There is a point in time where I become zealous and become less of a builder of souls. And when I become zealous, I want to put spears through people. And I can tell you, the people who accuse Joseph of the things that are not written in Torah are people who want to live a comfortable life and are not interested in Tikkun Olam. You see, the truth is, if you really understood the law of restoration, you would seek a life of Joseph. You would become what he was. Righteous enough to be recognized for persecution. Because that's what happened, right? Now we know every sequence had to go. He had to be sold into Egypt, etc., etc. Last night in the Midrash, it was brought up that it could have happened any other way. Could he have gone to Egypt as a result of some sort of visit or some sort of, endeavor with the sheep or whatever? And could he have ended up in a situation where he ends up interpreting Pharaoh's dream? And intriguingly enough, there's an element where the reason why he had to go through what he went through is for his brothers, the nations of Israel. So that his son Ephraim would be born. His son Ephraim, which we'll see in next week's portion, the fullness of the Gentiles. And so as a result of that, we do need to look at, is there an element of restoration here? Last night I was praying and I was like, Abba, why did you appoint Judah to have the line of the Messiah when he sold Joseph? And he told me, because my people are zealous for Torah. My Judah is zealous for Torah. You see, Judah had to reject Messiah so that Torah would be preserved, because with the Gentile inclusion, the Father knew that Christianity was going to throw Torah out. Joseph had to be sold. Was it a salvation to Joseph? Yes, of course. Judah saved his life. And Yeshua prophesied that he had to die. And we know that he had to die because our very souls cry out from within us the resurrection power. If the spirit of him who raised Yeshua from the dead dwells within you, he will give life to your mortal bodies. The resurrection power present within us that creates the newness of life, where we are transformed. We have a renewing of the mind, a renewing of the soul, a reset. Doesn't make us perfect, but it does give us the ability to do what we need to do. And one of the things that he created within us that we needed to do was to operate within the confines of his will, which is Torah. This is the will of God. If it wasn't his will, he would not have given it as instruction. You see, Joseph's life testifies against us in 3 ways. Number one, it testifies against us if we don't believe that there was a time where the Messiah, the one who all of the world will come and bow before, and he would subject the rest of the world and give Israel rulership, had to be rejected by Judah first. Because the Gentile Christian would come along and say, it's done away with. We don't need to keep it. And would interpret it to their version of what they want it to be. A very short investigation and study would show you that the Hellenization of the world influenced the dismissal and eventual removal of Torah. It is absolutely imperative that you understand that the reason why Judah had to reject Yeshua is so that the Torah would be preserved. And until 1948, we didn't believe that that was possible. We were taught by Muslims, we were taught by Christians, and we were taught by non-believers that the Jews could not be trusted with their scroll. And so there were other manuscripts used, the Targums, the Vulgate, the Septuagint, to show us the Old Testament. It was not Tanakh to us, who were not born within the Jewish way and path. But see, the relevance is that that's all built into this idea that eventually he would raise up the fullness of the Gentiles, Ephraim, into Torah. There's prophecy after prophecy after prophecy. Habakkuk even says that in the last days, those who were redeemed would reject Torah. But there was a remnant who would be preserved, who would rise up and be teachers of Torah after an order of a priesthood not in the Levitical order. All of that's in Tanakh. All of that is in the Old Testament. So getting back to the law of restoration, you know, it's kind of somewhat based upon a principle where it says that the Father would return to the people what the locust had eaten. I believe it's in Joel. And the principle is that he would restore what had been damaged. And the principle is that he would put back what had been removed. We see it in Hosea with the divorce. And yet we see a bride in Revelation chapter 19. You know, there's so many examples of this. So many places where there is a reparation made. So many places where there's an indication that the reason why something happened the way it did is because later on there would be a powerful elevation of more than just one tribe. A powerful elevation of more than just a single circumstance. And you see, that's the bigger picture. I used to sit in a pew on Sunday morning, and something didn't feel right. Do I believe that it was the Torah written upon my heart in the pulpit contradicting the words that were written upon my heart? Yes, somewhat. But I believe it was more. What wasn't sitting right is what we were supposed to be doing. You see, Christianity, evangelical Christianity specifically, is convinced that we merely exist to worship God. I can't express to you how thoroughly not interested I am in serving a God like that. I want to be a part of what he's doing, like Adam was. I want to be a part of his creative process. I want to be a part of his adjustments. I want to be as much integrated into him in the action of repairing. You do not want to sit in a rapture-induced stupor while I wait to die or wait to be whisked away. In fact, I'm going to tell you something. If the rapture occurs, I'm staying. In whatever context that means for you, I'm staying. Because there's work to be done. And as I sat in the pew, I couldn't sit still. And afterwards, I would go to the pastor and say, tell me what to do. Give me something to do. I'll vacuum. I'll clean the toilets, whatever. Teach me how to run the soundboard. Help me do this or that thing so that I can serve, that I can do something. And I realized that what that was what the pulpit was giving me versus what direction I was being pulled. I'm here to repair. And so, of course, you know that the limitation would have been a temptation to destroy, right? Right? And so there's a very destructive element in my darkness. But I'm here to repair. Let me tell you what that results in. Number one, I could never fit in with the Christian crowd. I tried, but all they're doing is waiting to die. They sing about waiting to die. They sing about doing absolutely nothing because it's been done away with. They worship God. They sing songs to God about death. They sing songs about something other than this place. Not all of them. I get that. There's in some cases where we definitely see that there is some song being offered up to the Father in heaven, in Scripture, that is indicative of a praise to him, and I'm not denying that. In fact, there will be a time when there will be a keyboard in here, and part of our service will probably be music. And I'll get my voice cords stretched back out where they're supposed to be, and we will worship together. I'm not trying to be accusatory here. What I'm trying to say is that this is not my place. That was not my path, because my path is something greater. I needed to learn and understand energy, which meant I needed to go outside of the pulpit, because they say that energy is evil. They say that New Age understanding of the divinity of man is evil. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a pendulum. The extreme is none, the other extreme is too much. An element of balance, not moderation. Let me be moderate in anything, right? No, that's not what I mean. I mean balance. Okay? Now, the reason I bring this up is because I want you to understand that one of the reasons why you are going through some of the stuff you're going through is because you still have the mindset that somebody else is going to fix it. You have the mindset that somebody else is to blame for the problem. It's interesting because in that you will fail to realize that you are here to fix it. We are here to elevate. We are here to lift it up, to change the status of it. Do you know that a Messiah only does one thing? He changes, or it changes, the status of a people. Cyrus of Persia was called a Messiah. What status did he change? He changed the slaves of Judah into the freemen of Judah. He released the Jews back to Jerusalem to build the temple, to rebuild the temple, to rebuild the walls, to rebuild the city, to become a nation again. He changed their status. So when you walk up to the man who has the sign that says anything will help, and you give him $10, and that's $10 more than what he had, you're being a Messiah. You see, the Messiah is just a people mover, and all he does in terms of moving people is elevates them, changes their status from dead to alive, from poor to rich, from weak to strong. When you go to a function, a party, a social gathering, out to eat with a friend, be shocked if you're the one who receives something, or you're the one who is blessed. Because I promise you, if you are a repairer, you leave every situation better than you found it. There's no time for you. Doesn't mean it ain't going to happen. I said be shocked. Because sometimes the Father likes to flip the script to say, you think you went out to eat to help this guy, but actually it's to help you. But what's interesting is that you need to approach with the mindset when you go to a function. Let's say that you go to a Bible study. Don't expect to be fed. Don't expect to learn anything. Expect to change the status of someone. Your life at the moment that you stepped into the binary element of testimony of Yeshua and the commandments of God, Revelation 12:17, was a commitment and an understanding to fix what has been broken. It's a lonely life. It's a painful life. And I got to be honest with you, I could care less about the reward. That's not built into me. I don't want recognition. I don't want praise. I don't want compensation. I want it to be better. And the reason I want it to be better is because I remember when I was not better. And I remember when someone came along in Tikkun Olam repaired the breach, and I became a repairer of souls. But I submit to you that you're one of two people. You're either the one who needs to be repaired, or you are the one who does the repairing. There are times where the Father appoints somebody to walk beside you to support you in that. He did with Adam. Adam was doing his action of creation. The Father was doing his action of creation. And the Father noticed he needed a helper. That helper doesn't always necessarily equate to a perfect situation. But the premise is there. And some of you men need to recognize that you have a helper, and some of you women need to recognize that's what you were created to do. Torah doesn't apologize for you being female. Torah instructs you to be the helper, to assist the man in the recreation of this world. That may sound harsh, but it's not me saying. It's what Torah expresses. Now, there are those who will take advantage of a Messiah. Think about this. If eating pork is an abomination to God in the Old Testament, and we know that the violation of Torah in any way, shape, or form is sin, 1 John chapter 3, verse 4. And we know that basically he made him who knew no sin to become sin for us, that we might become the righteousness of God. Then there's a function of he died for your sin of eating pork. And every time you eat it again, he dies again. Because there's kind of this retroactive element to your sin, right? He died once and for all. Behold the Lamb who takes away the sins of the world. The Lamb who was slain from the foundation of the world. That one. But what's interesting is we will do things like that. That was an example of where it's okay because he died. That's taking advantage of a Messiah. The man who, in order to be a tax evader, and in order to avoid the responsibility of the normal, bear with me on that word, process of a human being, puts out a street sign when he's got $800 in his pocket, is taking advantage of a Messiah. Now, does that mean that you should not help? Well, I think there's an element of shalom involved, right? Yeshua says when you go into a city, you let your shalom, if your shalom is received, then stay in that city many days. If it is not received, then you let their shalom return to you and you dust your feet off and you move on. You will know if what you have done with someone has been received. An investment in the economic change of a human being, mentally, physically, emotionally. There is a spiritual economy of energy and the transference of it from one individual to another when they are so far into their free will and so far outside of the energy of the source that you have to give them some of that positive energy in order to elevate them. That's the same as the dollar, y'all. Physically assisting somebody. Oh, here, let me get those bags for you. Messiah. Now, the reason this is important is because I think some of you have gone into situations thinking that you were there for a benefit to you. You know, I've been doing this for so long that I just expect, if there's something new going on other than the normal mundane operation of life, if there's a new thing that's occurring, I know that it is because there's a repair that is needed.